My handle is Swapsy, I'm playing Shaman for SK Gaming. This is my third BlizzCon, obviously makes me feel comfortable. My role as a team captain is to keep my team on the goal, make sure they know why we play every single day, that they don't forget what's gonna wait at the end of the road. We want to win BlizzCon, and that's why we have to put so much work into this.
I'm Botar. I play Druid, and I personally have so much experience that I played at the most lands out of all the players at this year's BlizzCon.
I'm Fabio, I play Warlock. For myself, I will be like the only player in history to win BlizzCon twice.
I'm Joe Fernandez, I play Warrior for SK Gaming. It will mean a lot for me to win BlizzCon this year. It's my first time being here, so it'd be really awesome to just win it straight away.
We are really impressed with the Korean ARM team Do It For Fun. Today was the first day of practice and they actually destroyed most of their opponents they faced today. We didn't really expect that, so that's kind of scary.
Well, teams like Cloud9, Tempostorm and Skillcap play RMD, and it's a composition we don't really like. So it would be a joy for us to knock them out.
After every single session, we watch VODs, usually go over all our mistakes, even the games we won, try to figure out every single mistake that was done and improve them.
We question ourselves in any point, in any aspect of the game. We are here to play now.
This is the time, this is the moment to win it this year.
We came into regionals, I think, as like underdog, kind of like we're like there's a lot of sponsored teams there, and we're unsponsored, and like a lot of people don't really know who we are. Cloud9's obviously like a great sponsor, and I'm like really happy to be playing for him.
I think that maybe we take it a little bit more seriously now, but I think we were pretty hungry before, and we're just as hungry now.
The first like 2 weeks before, we practiced like a lot, play like every single day almost.
To prepare for this tournament, I've been pretty much playing like every day since I won regionals.
And once you know what you're playing against, then you can really focus on doing like specific stuff and try and get a lot of hours in and perfect some things.
I think a lot of people could reach like to the level that we were at. I mean, it's just all about like getting along as a team. First of all, is really important. Like I get along with all my partners great. Wealthy and I like just hang out all the time in our hotel room, and same with Cubsy. I mean, we just have a good time. And then on top of that, you also have to be able to like realize your mistakes and like listen to other people. Like there's a lot of stubborn players like don't want to like change anything they do, or like they just want to do everything like how they want to do it, but like you got to be like open-minded. Some teams, I mean, they like to play like more like individual based around like than like the team play, but like in the expansion we play in, like team play is more important than individual play almost. Our team flow is just a lot better than most of the other RMDs. I think like we all of our CC like almost like perfect when we play like really well, and that's just, I don't know if like other teams can say the same really. There's not that many teams I'm really that scared of. I mean, I think like some of the teams might give us like a little trouble, but if we're like practiced and we're ready, I don't think we can lose to any team.
Experience has taught the Protoss that when we do not fight together, we die alone. But we shall not see defeat this day. For we stand as one. Our differences will not divide us, but make us stronger. Together, we will defend the Nexus with honor and earn our glory. I am Hierarch Artanis, leader of all Protoss. And in unity, there is strength.
The World of Warcraft Arena World Championship is brought to you in part by Intel, Windows 10, T-Mobile, and MasterCard. Hey guys, welcome back to the World of Warcraft Arena World Championships here at BlizzCon. We are live at Anaheim and we just saw Skillcapped EU take a very convincing series over Tempo Storm. And up next we have a very, very action-packed matchup of SK Gaming versus Cloud9. Who do you got in that match?
Well, actually, I had Tempo Storm, like in our brackets that we made, I had Tempo Storm taking the whole thing. So this is going to be really interesting. I hope Cloud9 for NA Pride can make it through, but it's going to be rough.
We do have the home crowd here. I kind of want to ask some of the viewers who their favorite is. So who do you think is going to take this next match, SK or Cloud9?
Cloud9.
Cloud9.
Cloud9. I think SKT is probably going to take it. SK, sorry.
I also want to, this is my buddy here. I also want to ask you a very important question. Who is your favorite host analyst for this tournament?
Shoot. Probably Bashira.
Good call, man. Good call. Have you guys been having a fun BlizzCon so far?
Yes. Yes, very much so.
What has been your favorite part about this BlizzCon so far?
Oh, watching the arena tournament, probably. Watching this guy.
Yeah, Vihela's pretty awesome. I know he's been telling us a lot of awesome BlizzCon stories, right?
Yeah, I got a pretty funny one.
Oh,
okay,
yeah?
So I met Holland here like 4 years ago at BlizzCon. We were at one of the parties 4 years ago. Yeah, so at the Curse party actually, and it was funny because she kept looking over at me, and I was like, okay, all right. She probably watched the games. Okay, I'm gonna walk up and say something really clever to her, right? So I was like, okay, I gotta remember what I'm gonna talk about the games. I'm gonna do something, and then I walked up to her and I went completely blank, and I say, "Do you know who I am?" But it worked. She kept talking to me, and then later that day, because it was the Friday of BlizzCon, and I hung out with her again on Saturday, and I told my brother, I'm gonna marry this girl. I am. First day I met her. Told my brother that, and might as well do it. You marry me?
Give it up for our newly engaged couple, guys. Come on!
Oh man, that is amazing. Congratulations to Jared and Holland. I've known Jared for a few years now, and I've known Holland as well, and they are just amazing together. So I am super pumped for both of them. Congratulations to both. That is the most epic match that we've seen here yet today.
It's hard to follow that up. I don't think there is anything that can follow it up.
They got everyone here Bible thumping right now.
Yeah. I mean, honestly,
congratulations to them. Yeah, amazing couple. Very nice people. So it's good to see them come together. I hope it works out.
Yeah, this is the final day. My name is Sid Subatis-Compson. I've been joined by Elliot Venruki Venzel and Josh Lore Allen at the end, and we are looking to bring you the final series of the day, the last semi-final to finish it up to decide who is going to face off against Skillcapped EU and who is going home.
Yeah, tomorrow's match coming up is going to be the grand finals tomorrow, so make sure you stick around for that tomorrow as well. But the winner of this series will be moving on to face that team in the grand finals as well. We can go ahead and take a look at the brackets actually and break everything down for you guys. So here we can see Group A, the way that shook out. SK Gaming ended up going up against Tempo Storm SK Gaming and Tempo Storm were the two teams that made it out of there. They did actually face off against each other, but Tempo Storm came back through the lower bracket to be able to move on to the semifinals. We just saw them unfortunately drop out versus Skillcapped EU, another team that came out of Group B actually. They had a nice run through Group B as they moved through there. You can see taking down Follow Esports and then taking down Cloud9 to go up into the semifinals. Cloud9 dropping down below and then working their way back to get to this match versus SK Gaming.
I think at this point in the tournament, SK Gaming is actually the only team that hasn't dropped a single round. They haven't dropped a single map, so they're looking very strong going into this tournament. Of course, they were the first seed coming out from the European region, so Cloud9 going to have their work cut out for them in this next game.
And I'm wondering if Cloud9 is shaking up a little bit. They did lose one game to Absturge previously, which I didn't expect. I thought that would go cleanly for them 2-0, and they did end up losing one map in that last series, so maybe they're going on tilt. They've got to keep a level head here moving into this semi-finalist round if they want to make it all the way to the end and take BlizzCon.
I think the thing is, though, if these guys play as well as they have been today, I mean, like you said, they did lose one map, but they did come back after that. They look very, very strong. And if they can play as well in this game right now as they have been throughout the rest of the tournament, then I think they have a very good shot against SK.
There is a lot on the line here, though, and a lot of pressure on these teams to be able to continue, because once you get to the semifinals, you're just one series away from potentially from making it to the grand finals, where you can potentially grab that $120,000 first place prize. That's an awful lot of money to make off of just playing World of Warcraft for a little while. So both of these teams really, really want to move on here, but we do actually have a video available that we can go ahead and take a look at. I believe it's on SK Gaming.
I think we can beat both Cloud9 and Tempo Storm. Even though they were playing RMD, they didn't practice as much as we did. We win them with both setups. We play easily since they don't care about the details. They only care about the meta game and how people play on US. They adapted to that. But at the same time, the turbos on US aren't as strong as our team, because they tried a lot, but they didn't try everything. They didn't try the small things and the defensive management.
I think that some Americans, like, we have European accounts now too, so it's not like that unique that we get to talk to the Europeans. Like, we sort of already have the opportunity to. The first game against Absurd FLS, we had a bit of a close call when a water bolt broke our blind on the Ferals Incarn, and they kind of like tried to jump on that and go really offensive, but then they just ended up instantly dying, so it all worked out.
It was planned.
All right, both of these teams obviously have played a lot of matches to get here today. Let's talk a little bit about SK Gaming, actually, because they were the team that we haven't seen them play yet here at BlizzCon, but they were the team that made it out of the EU regionals as the first place team. They actually came back pretty strongly against SkillCapped EU there. We were able to come back in that best of 5 series to win. They were actually behind in the series and came back. I want to talk about Joe Fernandez in particular. Like, he's going to be the guy to watch, assuming that he's playing, he's going to be the guy to watch out for in this upcoming matchup, because he's just so good at making those sudden swaps over and getting those kills at the opportune moment. He gets the sudden death proc available, gets the double execute on people. It's a lot of damage, and we've really seen him really just being the MVP of a lot of the different matches that he's been playing in.
Yeah, he's able to put up a lot of damage. At the same time, he's also able to rotate defensive cooldowns very well, always able to save his trinket as well as vigilance, which is a talent we hadn't really seen previously to this tournament. It's a very big defensive cooldown. What it does is it reduces incoming damage, I believe by 30% for 12 seconds. It's a 3-minute cooldown, so it's a huge defensive cooldown. You have to make sure you rotate it properly, and we're going to be looking to him to actually save his team with that ability.
But of course, we want to be introducing the teams now as well to the stage. So Jackson, let's welcome our teams to the last semifinal of the day.
Thanks, Sid. All right, guys, you heard that was the last game of the day. This is going to be a big one. This is the #1 NA team coming out of their regional versus the #1 EU team out of that regional. So this one is going to be an action-packed matchup. Let's go ahead and introduce our first team, SK Gaming. Let's go, SK Gaming, guys. #1 team coming out of EU. They got a lot to prove. Haven't dropped a match yet since we started our BlizzCon, a World of Warcraft Arena World Championship, so it's gonna be a big one. We've got Big Joe Fernandez coming out first, and Swapsy, Botar, and Fabs. Like you heard, we can expect these guys to play Turbo Cleave. These guys know how to handle an R&D, but the thing is, they're up against Cloud9, who is the #1 team coming out of North America as well. Let's get these guys out here. Oh yeah! Let's hear it for him, Cloud9. All right, we got Roasties, Wealthy Man, and Cubsy. Once again, the only 3-man roster in this tournament. These guys are friends, have great synergy, and obviously know how to play a mean RMD. So these guys are going to give SK Gaming quite the battle, I would imagine. But I cannot wait to get these matches started. Let's throw over the casters and do just that.
All right, thanks so much, Jackson. Both of these teams looking so pumped for this upcoming matchup. Both of them know that this is one of the most important series that they will play, possibly even in their lives, here at BlizzCon 2015.
If I had to label these teams, I would say SK Gaming are the immovable object and that Cloud9 are the unstoppable force. And both of these teams are going to really clash together in an excellent showing, I think. I'm sure that this matchup could easily go 3-2. It's going to be quite a close matchup between these teams, and I'm more than excited to jump into it.
Yeah, SK, of course, playing that Turbo Cleave mostly. That's what they've been playing throughout this tournament. Cloud9, of course, running that Rogue Mage Druid. And one of the cool things about this matchup is it's actually fairly even. We've seen it in the past at the European regionals when I believe SK Gaming went up against, I think they were Solari Gaming Red at the time, which is now Skill Cap EU. So they went up against Skill Cap EU, and it's very back and forth. The first series they lost 2-3. They were able to come back and win 3-2. So it's about as close as they can get, 5 games apiece. So we know Cloud9 is probably looking at those games, or they looked at those games, they had the opportunity to, and they can really capitalize on that and get some information.
Yeah, this is one of those games that I feel like we end up saying this every year during one of the semifinals, but this is a match that could be a finals. Like these two teams, if the brackets had just worked out differently, we could ended up seeing both of these teams in the grand final. So seeing them here in the semifinals, just leading into the grand finals, it's even more exciting in a lot of ways because we know we get to see this matchup, and we know that tomorrow whoever moves on is going to have a pretty epic matchup as well. Of course, the team that loses here is going to be eliminated from the tournament. They will come out in that 3rd, 4th place position. They still get a good chunk of prize money, but you want $120,000. There's no way in this world that someone does not want $120,000.
And of course, we've been expressing our opinions of the matchup, but we also have it extended to you. Who do you think is going to come out ahead here today? And it's fairly tied here, 57% in favor of Cloud9 and 43% to SK. So fairly even poll, a fairly even expected matchup here. I really think that Cloud9 specifically need to mix some stuff up. Roasties only plays subtlety typically. I mean, maybe he's going to play combat here today. It would be for the first time, I think, on a tournament stage, but subtlety's damage is a lot more predictable. And one thing about SK Gaming is that they are always great about having an answer for burst cooldowns.
Well, that's one of the great things about Cloud9 is they only have a 3-man roster. So they've been playing RMD, they've been sticking to their guns, playing that subtlety rogue, I think, throughout the entire tournament, which a lot of rogues don't think is the best spec actually for Rogue, especially in this particular matchup, but we can speculate all day. I believe we actually do have a draft available, so we can see what these guys are actually going to be running here today in a quick second. What map? Oh, of course it is going to be Negrand because it is the first game, of course. Looks like SK Gaming will be running that Turbo Cleave, and Cloud9 will be running that Rogue Mage.
Combat.
Oh, actually Combat.
He is Combat.
Interesting.
Looks like I was wrong.
Yeah,
Usually am.
He's going to go with that Combat Rogue. Of course, the major difference there is that he will have that Killing Spree available, and once he gets that red buff active, by sticking to a target long enough, that Killing Spree is going to cause so much damage. So SK Gaming is going to have to be ready with those peels. In particular, I think Joe Fernandez is going to be the one we're going to be looking for to maybe get a Shockwave off to disrupt that Killing Spree coming out from Roasties. But if there is a team that has the answer to RMD, I feel like SK Gaming is it. They won against an RMD, the RMD of Skill Capped actually, in the finals at the European regionals, coming back from that deficit. I feel like if there is a Turbo Cleave that can beat an RMD, it's these guys right here.
Yeah, SK Gaming are the RMD annihilators, and we can see that Roasties is trying to adapt to that by bringing out the combat specialization. However, this is the first time that he has played combat on the stage here, so I'm curious to see if the jitters are going to get to him at all in this first match, which will be on the Grand Arena between these teams. SK Gaming with Joe Fernandez on the Arms Warrior, Swapsy on the Enhancement Shaman, Botar on Restoration Druid, going up against Cloud9, Roasties on Combat Rogue, Wealthy Man on Frost Mage, and Cubsy on Restoration Druid. Can Cloud9 penetrate through the unstoppable force of SK Gaming?
Give it up for these guys. If you want to see Cloud9 win this matchup, let's give them a cheer, guys, as well as for SK Gaming. There's going to be some incredible games. Both these guys, of course, first in their region. So this is a bit of a North American / European grudge match, so to speak. Looks like Roasties is going to be pushing in, trying to get an ideal over a cheap shot onto Swapsy right away. Going to get Ironbark immediately by Botar. I like that. He's also going to pop his Nature's Vigil. He wants to make sure Swapsy's not going to be taking any damage. Wealthy Man realizes the kill has been lost and just going to spam those polymorphs onto Swapsy. And it looks like they're actually going to swap over on a Botar.
Yeah, his Bark's getting right away. He's caught in bear form. Will it be enough? We saw Cubsy following in a similar fashion here. Botar needs to react appropriately as the Frozen Orb gets dropped, dipping down to 50% HP. Does land a full bash onto Roasties, which will stabilize him for now.
Yeah, this is the big thing that we see out of SK Gaming, and just how they decide to try to deal with these RMDs is just how many of their cooldowns do they have to use, and that was actually a lot of them that just got used there by Botar. He does still have his Nature Swiftness available, but his Bark Skin and Iron Bark and even his Mighty Bash are gone for quite a while. Ooh, and he actually just trinketed right there. I'm not even sure what he trinketed, but he did have to use his trinket right there, just trying to keep his teammates alive. Swapsy, of course, having to come in with that Shamanistic Rage as well. So SK Gaming actually having to use a ton of cooldowns. Iron Bark will be up in just a second, but it just just is going to depend on if Cloud9 can get the setup they need.
Yeah, that was well done by Cubsy. He actually cloned Swapsy, and as the clone faded, Botar got blinded and Swapsy got kidney shot, so that's why they ended up both having to trinket. A little bit of an overlap, though, and now Swapsy's in a position where he's caught into a full kidney shot. Vigilance comes out. Joe Fernandez coming in with that clutch Vigilance, like I was saying, actually caught into that full Cyclone, but I think because of that Vigilance, it's going to be taking 30% less damage. Swapsy should be okay, but the Deep Freeze comes out onto Botar, the full polymorph. Swapsy could actually be in a lot of trouble. The Vigilance is going to fade.
He's down to 40%. He displaces away. Joe leaps after him, and S comes out from Cubsy. Cubsy should be able to stabilize with only Joe on his back. Joe realizes that he's going to try and peel back desperately here. Goes for the Stormbolt charge over onto the DPS. Wealthy Man, the primary target, down to almost into execute range. Cubsy needs to be able to pick him back up. He does not have an S. He does not have Iron Bark. Wealthy Man doing a good job to kite away from the Turbo Cleave pressure, but SK Gaming don't care. They're just going to swap over onto Roast. He's just chopping him away down to 50% HP. Cubsy trying to Tranquility around the pillar. Will it be enough to keep him alive? It looks like it should. Roasty's caught into the charge stun. Feint is falling here shortly. Well done keeping the Feint up, reducing as much damage as possible. We see Wealthy Man morphing Swapsy at the moment. Curious if they're going to make a swap. They are. Botar caught into the full kidney shot. He did not bear form. He's going to bar skin right away. He has no trinket. Are they going to be able to burst him through it? Down to 50%. Swapsy off healing him. Swapsy doing an amazing job keeping Botar alive through that swap.
Yeah, might actually have the opportunity to swap to him once again, pardon me, with no bar skin, no trinket available for another 30 seconds. If they can capitalize on that, they might be able to land a kill on a Botar. But now Botar actually caught into that full sheet because of that Swapsy having to use that Shamanistic Rage. I like what Cloud9's doing. They're bouncing between targets, making sure nobody feels safe, nobody feels comfortable, and everyone's having to rotate their defensive cooldowns.
Yeah, they're getting through a ton of defensive cooldowns at the moment. Ironbark is just about to come back up for Botar as well as Trinket, but the Shamanistic Rage is falling off of Swapsy. Botar gets caught into the Mighty Bash. Swapsy could be in a lot of trouble here. There's nothing available for him to stay alive. 40% health. The clone comes out onto Botar. Swapsy is in so much trouble. Finally, the Trinket comes up and the Ironbark comes out onto Swapsy, but he's still taking so much damage. He could actually be in a ton of trouble right here.
Though caught into a full bash at the moment. Can Swapsy and Joe connect? They have to kill him in this bash if they're going to take him down. He's down to 50, down to 49%. Blind over onto Botar. Poly onto Joe. Cloud9 have triple CC. Swapsy caught into that kidney shot. They need to follow it up. I can't help but feel that Blind was a little bit mistimed. Now Botar should be able to easily heal through the damage. Cloud9 losing an opportunity there. We see a bash now onto Cubsy. Unfortunately, it is half the yard. Swapsy's still down at 50%. Shaman Rage coming up in 7 seconds. That's going to be his last line of defense against Cloud9.
Yeah, Rosty's going to be trying to connect and build up that red buff. Killing Spree once again, spamming out that feint. He is taking a lot of damage. The Colossus Smash comes out from Joe Fernandez. Cubsy actually choosing to use his Iron Bark. Wants to prevent some of that incoming damage onto Rosty's. Swapsy actually getting caught into that deep freeze. Botar getting swapped to now, having to use that bar skin once again. So now he's in a position, if they could save some damage, they might be able to take him out here. But in the future, he has no trinket, no bar skin for another minute, but he still is low, 50%.
Cubsy gets torn apart. He's in the execute range. He displaces to the center field. The Ascendant's just not enough to finish him off. Rosty's with the clutch gals. But now Rosty's caught into a bash. Cubsy needs to come back to pick him back up, spamming those regrowths after regrowths, trying to stabilize his team, but he's running slowly but surely out of mana, already down to 20%.
Yeah, Cubsy has been doing an amazing job keeping his team alive through all of this, but he is at now 14% mana. Botar's sitting pretty at 40%, however, he's also stuck
Botar's in a lot of trouble. Yeah, the full kidney shot at the moment. Rosty's actually using that adrenaline rush, putting a lot of pressure onto him, but it looks like he is going to be okay. Joe Fernandez realizes the situation, comes back doing as much peeling as he can. Cubsy actually caught into that full Stormbolt, also terribly low on mana. This game is 30 seconds away from dampening. Cubsy down to 12% mana, and Joe Fernandez and Swapsy doing an excellent job keeping up the pressure and making sure Cubsy has to heal.
Yeah, Cloud9 need to pull back, and I don't think Swapsy and Joe are going to let them, unfortunately. And Cubsy is not able to get any mana at the moment. Wealthy has one more Ice Block remaining. He's fully hotted. Botar's moving in. He gets Wind Sheared there on the Cyclone. Wealthy Man dipping dangerously low, landing those defensive polymorphs so onto Swapsy. Cheap shot onto Joe. Garrode Silence onto Swapsy. They're looking to try and get the Shaman Rage on this setup. Going into the full kidney shot. There's the Shamanistic Rage to answer it immediately. There's the polymorph to follow it up onto Botar, but SK Gaming are looking very good in this position.
Yeah, Killing Spree is coming up for Roasties, though. It is available, so they're just looking for a good opportunity here to pull that out. They need to get some through. They need to get through some more cooldowns. Roasty, though, caught into that bash.
Down to 10% HP. This could just be into an execute range. Cubsy actually getting that NS off in the nick of time. Cubsy actually getting a little bit of a drink there, too. Joe Fernandez did an excellent job stopping that. So, like I said, they need to keep up the pressure. Cubsy can't get a drink off. He's using that Tranquility to top his team off right now. That was really scary for Roasty. He does have his trinket now. Killing Spree also available for him, so they can make something happen with that. It could be scary for SK Gaming.
Botar doing a great job to pre-shift the deep and getting that Iron Bark up preemptively. Now caught in the blind. Is he going to trade the trinket? Yes, he does. Right away, immediately. Smoke Bomb gets dropped out onto Swapsy. No Shaman Rage for 10 more seconds. Botar goes for the Tranquility, but Joe leaps in and lands a double fear. And Joe is going to keep Swapsy alive as Shaman Rage was not available for 5 more seconds. We can see pressure mounting onto Cubsy. He's displacing back. Roasty getting swapped to now. The Iron Bark is forced out. Wealthy Man getting reflected on that sheep, trying to peel for his team at the moment. Cubsy needs to find a moment to get a drink. He's down to 2% mana, and I don't think he can keep this up much longer.
Yeah, Joe Fernandez doing an amazing job keeping his team alive, and now it's really starting to pay off for them as Wealthy is getting super low, but Swapsy gets caught into that kidney shot. He's going to have to use a Shamanistic Rage. Botar is caught into a full sheep. He has no trinket available. Swapsy's getting so low, down to 40% health. Catches a nice heal there from Botar. That's his Nature Swiftness, but we're 9% into dampening. It's going to be so much for Botar to have to deal with, and he's running out of mana. He's down to 15%, desperately trying to keep his teammates alive, but Swapsy somehow is still alive here, and it looks like they're going to try and turn it back around onto Roasties.
Yeah, Cubs is doing an excellent job fighting there. He did have to use his bar skin, unfortunately. Roasty's going to be completely fine using his last evasion. So Roasty, no evasion. Actually, just coming up right now. So he does have evasion available. Wealthy Man dipping dangerously low, though. He does have one ice block, almost two. Getting an execute range, though. Big trouble. Gets down to 20% HP, caught into that ice block. Cubsy taking a lot of pressure, not able to top off Wealthy Man. He does have some hots at the moment. Cubsy trying desperately to get away, trying to turn around the pressure onto Swapsy. Botar caught into that full polymorph. This could just be the game. No strong rage available for another 8 seconds. Can Cloud9 turn it around onto Swapsy right now? Botar going to get out of that crowd control, spamming out the rejuves over and over.
Wow.
A Genesis coming out, Spellsteal's coming out from Wealthy. Swapsy's going to survive. Both Druids running on fumes at the moment.
Killing spree coming out though onto Swapsy. He's down to 25%. Roasty down into execute range. Strong rage comes out. Will it be enough? Down at 7%. Call to the kidney shot, and that comes out from Botar with the rallying cry. And SK Gaming are going to survive another setup out from Cloud9. Now the full fear over onto Cubsy. Roasty has no trinket. Caught to the full bash. Stormbolt cross CC. Roasty's dipping dangerously low, down to 22% HP. And Cloud9, Murray Miracles right here, are barely alive. Down at 7, Roasty's going to fall. They're trying to take Swapsy's down. At the same time, Swapsy's line of sighting gets locked on his heel. Wealthy Man following it up with a little bit of CC. If Cubsy can get a clone, I don't think they're going to be able to finish it off, though. Swapsy is feeling very stable at 42%, and Cloud9 are going to fall in game number 1.
Yeah, that was almost a cross kill there for Cloud9. All of these guys, and they're still playing it out and even just trying to do their best. But yeah, there it is. It is going to be the first game to SK Gaming, taking it 1-0 versus Cloud9 in this best of 5 series. And we saw so many times in there on either side of that matchup, it could have been the game at any single point. Both of these teams just so evenly matched and playing so well against each other. And that's just game 1.
That is just game 1. Have to see what these guys choose for a map. I mean, Cloud9, what map do you think, Sid, would be the best map for them going up against RMD?
Tolvaron Arena typically is the map that the RMDs are going to go with against the Turbo Cleave in a specific matchup. I think Roasties did a phenomenal job having it being his first day playing combat on a tournament stage and probably not his most practiced spec, but they played that out very standardly. I would like to see, though, Cloud9, before dampening starts to tick up, find more opportunities to drink, try and drag SK Gaming off the pillar and chase them to stop them, because Cubsies really needs to get a lot of mana if they want to stay offensive.
Yeah, both Druids were having to spend like half of their mana bar at several occasions just to keep their teammates alive because of the amount of burst damage coming out from either team. So getting those drinks off is so important in this matchup, because as they do, as we saw in that last match, both healers were so low on mana. That was the biggest reason that Cloud9 kept pushing for the cross kill there, because Botar had nothing left. It was entirely possible that just Wealthy Man alone would have been able to do enough damage to Swapsy to end up securing that kill and turning it into a 2v2. So if there was just a little bit more mana available at that stage, it would have been, if it was more mana on Botar's side, that would have been a much easier win for them.
Yeah,
but more mana on the other side, maybe that game could have gone differently.
Yeah, one thing to note too is actually Cubsy has a little bit of an advantage when it comes to drinking, because mage food actually is better than regular food. It ticks immediately, so when Cubsy sits down and starts drinking, he immediately gets mana from that mage food, whereas when Botar sits down, he has to wait a little bit before it comes into effect.
I really think that, though, Cloud9 could exploit the drinking a little bit more. The one thing that is very scary as a Turbo Cleave is when you have to overextend out of line of sight of your Resto Druid, or even when you have to stack up. We saw constant swaps over onto Botar, so he needed to be a little bit careful as well. So I'd like to see Tempo Storm take advantage of their mobility, try and pull back a little bit more often and regularly to try and get drinks and overextend SK Gaming.
Yep. So we do have Jackson down at the stage, ready to go with our Windows 10 game DVR replay.
Holy moly, how about these games today, guys? Wow. That was so back and forth. This is the kind of series that makes me so glad we're doing best of 5 for the semifinals. This is amazing. These teams are going at it. It could go either way. And I want to take a look at the replay because they absolutely battled all the way down to the wire. Both healers were It could have gone anybody's way. But once again, one of the things that SK Gaming was doing so effectively, and maybe even a little bit more effectively, than Cloud9 this match was those Druid swaps. The Druids, they were forcing them to constantly have, full hots on everybody, and every time they swapped, it seemed like they got a lot of pressure. But SK Gaming, since they have a little more cleave damage, really made those swaps stick, and they also never allowed Cubsy to get a drink. Plus, the off heals from Swapsy really helped to keep SK Gaming alive. Plus, the tremendous peeling from Joe Fernandez. Every time we see this guy, he's always landing clutch shockwaves, clutch fears. He jumped into the smoke bomb, landed a double fear, and saved his buddy's life. That is an absolutely amazing play, especially as a Warrior player. You gotta love that. But we are gonna send it to the casters to get this next game going. Man, I cannot wait. Take it away, guys.
Yeah, seriously, for a game one in this best of 5, I don't think we could have asked for anything better. And that was an important game one as well, because now it means for SK Gaming that they only ever have to win on their own map pick because of the way the rules work out. And after each match, the losing team gets to declare the map, winning team declares the comp, losing team declares the comp, and that just continues through the entire best of 5. So that means that SK Gaming can lose this next match, and then they still only have to win on their own map pick from there on, just as it'll ping back and forth. And turns out after 5 games, if they win on their own map pick, they end up taking the series. So that game one was super important in this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely, as always. But I think we will end up seeing these guys run the same composition against each other. We've been seeing them traditionally run RMD, of course, Cloud9. That's all they've been running, and SK Gaming running that Turbo Cleave. So the map selection, like you said, will definitely help. And we actually do have a video talking to these teams about some of the strengths they feel that they have going into this matchup.
I think we win BlizzCon because we have really high work ethics. We practice together every single day of the week, no exception. Watch pods after. I think we deserve, and we will win BlizzCon.
I think we're a stronger team because we know how to practice. We know how to communicate with each other.
If the other teams practice as much as we did, they could actually not lose a single game with their composition.
Bota's role, mainly as the healer, is to cycle through our defensive cooldowns as efficiently as possible, and he's doing a great job at that. Me and Joe make the offensive calls together. We're really good at that.
I think we're a well-structured team.
We're like way better than everyone else, and we'll win regardless their comps.
Because we're not just teammates, we're also friends.
Being the only team with 2 people on it, a lot of people see it as a disadvantage. I mean, like, we only have 1 comp we can play, but I think it really like boosts the synergy though between like all the players. Like, that's all we play, so we know RMD like inside and out.
We all understand the comp enough and understand like what's good to do, that if someone mentions something we weren't thinking of, like we generally like instantly know if we should be doing that.
I'm really proud of like how we all get along together, first of all, and like how like our CC in game is like really good. Like when we're on point, it's just like there's like almost nothing the other team can do. And like when I've like watched scrims of like the other RMDs play, like it seems like we can do like a lot more insane CC than them. So definitely like makes me feel really good about my partners. Like I'm playing with the right people.
It's not so much about regions. It's just that our RMD is the best out of everyone.
All right, some bold words there coming out of Cloud9. Our RMD is the best out of anyone. I think so far they've kind of been showing that, though. They've been really strong in every series they played. They did end up losing 1 series last week during the opening week, which knocked them to the lower bracket. But man, they are fighting their way back into this thing.
Yeah, that 1 series you were mentioning, I don't think they end up playing their best after talking to some of the players. I think some jitters may have come into effect. But today, we can see these guys are playing amazing. So I'd like to see them continue on in this tournament. And yeah, these games are going to be really good. This, of course, is only game 1. Moving forward, we are going to figure out which map these guys will be playing on for the second game.
Yeah, both of these teams are playing their hearts out here on the BlizzCon stage for you and us along with, and it's been awesome to see as well. And I think the Tolvaron Arena is going to give Cloud9 a little bit of edge that they need to try and get those drinks. It's a much more large map. You can kite further distances and drag the Turbo Cleave into positions where you can strike back and land the crowd control that you need as you drag them off the pillar.
Yeah, and we do actually have the draft that we can go ahead and take a look at and just confirm everything that's going on between these 2 teams. We can see that it is, in fact, Tolvaron Arena, and that's going to be the Arms Warrior, Enhancement Shaman, and Resto Druid once again for SK Gaming. Of course, that's known as Turbo Cleave for reasons. And then Cloud9 playing that RMD. Roasty's actually sticking with the combat rogue here.
I think it was a good choice. They had a lot of pressure throughout the entire game. One of the things about combat over subtlety is it has more consistent damage. So you do have that red buff killing spree, which is comparable to Shadow Dance, but at the same time, just attacking a target, you put out so much more pressure, and it becomes way harder for the enemy wrestler druid to heal through.
Yeah, just the consistent pressure coming out is so important, and even just like you were saying, that sudden burst. Like if you just have a target, you just have a bunch of heal over time effects on him, you're like, oh yeah, he'll be fine, and then you make a quick swap over and you pop that killing spree, especially once they have that red buff available. It's just so much damage to have to deal with. Of course, SK Gaming up 1-0 in this series. They actually dealt with it very, very well in that last match, so we'll have to see if they're going to be able to do that again here on Tolvaron Arena.
I'm curious if Joe had vigilance towards the end of that game. It seemed like he had the rallying cry available, but he was holding on to the vigilance. He ended up not overlapping it, but it was a very close call for Swapsy. Cloud9 are not out of this series by any means. They could definitely pull this back here on Tolvaron Arena. As Lore said, SK Gaming is leading currently 1-0 as the gates are about to open. Cloud9, I think, are going to be looking to get a much more strong opening pressure. Botar was able to get that pre-Iron Bark out, so let's see if they can land the cross CC that they need in the initial stages of this match.
Yep, Roasty's now moving in here, looking for that opening sap. Probably going to try and go after Swapsy with that one, but he's actually just circling around all the way into the back, just trying his best to get an opportune moment. And there it is, the sap comes out onto Swapsy. They're looking to maybe get some damage into Joe Fernandez, but he's just going to go ahead and Blade Storm right out of there.
Yeah, that was an excellent job by Roasty's waiting for that Blade Storm to fade so he can actually put Joe Fernandez into that cheap shot so he gets cycloned out. That's what Joe was trying to do. He's trying to immune that incoming CC so he could stop the opener. They had very good presence of mind, though, and were able to get the CC on him anyways.
Yeah, Iron Bark coming out onto Swapsy to answer the smoke bomb. You overlapped a little bit with the Iron Bark here as well. Joe Fernandez has to be careful with his next vigilance here. Botar did pre-shift the sheep show. He's not going to have the follow-up. Goes into that full blind. Is he going to trinket? He trinkets that right away. Trying to get full hots rolling onto Swapsy. Doing a good job to line of sight. Incoming polymorphs out from Wealthy Man as well. We can see Wealthy Man trying to build up some icicles for the next attack as they clone up Swapsy. Adrenaline Rush out from Roasties here. Trying to build up towards that red buff a little bit quicker. A charge over onto Cubsy. Colossus Smash is up. Joe trying to take him down by himself as we see the setup come out from Cloud9 though. Swapsy trinkets that right away. There's no Charmers, there's no Ironbark. The Vigilance has to come out. Botar gets garroted. Swapsy still down at 38% HP. Cubsy caught into the Stormbolt, trying to reverse the pressure. The Ascendance gets popped. Recklessness used as well in combination. Cubsy forced to Barkskin, forced to use that NS as well. Still getting decimated at the moment, down to 47%, able to line of sight and get away from Joe for the time being.
Botar did an excellent job there. He managed to shut down that CC by actually shifting in the bear. Wealthy Man didn't have his Ring of Frost available, so he couldn't get follow-up CC. Cubsy actually pushed in to get a Cyclone, and Botar shadow melted that, so he sort of diffused all their crowd control and kept Swapsy up.
Yeah, but Roasty's taking a bunch of damage there. Does have to get that Iron Bark as well. Cubsy caught into a brief bit of CC there, just trying to keep his teammate alive. It looks like Roasty's going to be fine for now, but that was a little bit sketchy there for a moment. They actually pulled out Cubsy's trinket with that as well. So a nice little swap there, but now it looks like they're heading back over on a Swapsy. The Shamanistic Rage is going to come out. Botar caught into the full polymorph. He does not have a trinket available, so he's just going to have to sit through that. I feel like they'll probably be fine coming out of this, but that Shamanistic Rage is about to wear off on Swapsy. Meanwhile, they're trying to turn it around onto Wealth. He's actually getting kind of low at the moment. Cubsy caught into that Stormbolt. Wealthy could end up having to Ice Block here.
The swapping over to Cubsy. No Barskin, and he's going to go down. And SK Gaming are going to take a quick game two. Roasty and Wealthy Man not giving up just yet, but they're not able to finish it off with Cubsy down. And SK Gaming are taking a commanding lead here on Tolvaron Arena, now moving into the potentially final game 3.
Cubsy spent a lot of time and effort trying to get that Cyclone on Botar, and Swapsy and Joe Fernandez did an excellent job shutting him down. He had to actually spend the time to go bash Joe Fernandez, and then Swapsy just shocked him anyways. He just fell behind, got caught into a stun, had no Barskin available, and they were able to capitalize on that.
Yeah, that's one thing we've seen out of Cubsy that actually happened in the series at opening week that actually knocked them to the lower bracket is unfortunately he just was not prepared for the sheer amount of damage that came into him. He ended up losing a series out of that. So hopefully that was just kind of a one-off for him here in this series. I want to see a really, really close series here. So I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of pulling for Cloud9 to come back and take a couple of games. But
just because you want to see more games.
I want to see more games. Yeah, exactly.
The main thing there was that Cloud9 was one more setup away from winning. So I think that they kind of overstayed their welcome. They really got excited about trying to engage the next setup, and they overextended for it because of that. And SK Gaming were able to punish them just a few more seconds before their setup was available. There's no Shaman Rage, there was no trinkets on either side, there was no armor, there was nothing really standing in the way of Cloud9 from taking the victory there. So unfortunately, they overstayed their welcome just a little bit, and SK Gaming are going to be able to punish them very hard here in game number 2. And now Cloud9 are against the wall and face elimination here at BlizzCon. This could potentially be the final game for them.
One important thing, however, in Cloud9's favor in that last matchup is that Cubsy actually did exactly 1337 damage with a Fairy Swarm. So
wow.
that's almost more impressive than actually winning. No, what am I talking about? Winning the series is obviously the most impressive thing available, but I just thought it was funny. So we will be getting into this next matchup here very, very shortly, but we do have Jackson available down at the stage for that Windows 10 game DVR replay.
All right, guys. So in that matchup, things seem to be going really similar to the way we saw it before. You know, teams trading back and forth. And like the casters mentioned, Cloud9 was one setup away from scoring the kill, and that may have actually made them over the state. They're welcome, as Sid mentioned. Let's take a look at this replay. One of the things I really like that SK is doing is they are often swapping with those storm bolts. I'm so glad we caught that. What we got right there was a very, very nice fear by Joe Fernandez, which secured Cubsy's trinket. It was kind of an instinctive trinket, saying, I'm going to trinket fear this game. You know, I don't want to fall behind. That he knows that they got AoE pressure down in a dampening game last time. But watch these guys once again apply pressure to both Wealthy Sock and Roasties. They're both to half health, but then once again, Joe catches Cubsy in a Stormbolt. It seems to have caught Cubsy a little bit unaware, drops down low enough for that execute to hit, and with that, Cubsy goes down. So Cloud9 have their work cut out for them here. They are one game away from elimination, and SK Gaming definitely seems to be up to the task of defeating the #1 NA team. Either way, guys, cannot wait to get to this next game. We're going to go ahead and throw it back over to the casters and get it going. Take it away, guys.
All right, thank you so much, Bajira. Yeah, I cannot say enough good things about Joe Fernandez in these couple of games that we've seen so far. He's just been saving his teammates at the last possible second so many times. He's been making just such incredible swaps. He's been shouting at the top of his lungs with how excited he is at this. Like, it's just been an amazing match to see.
SK Gaming are so invested in this tournament. Like, they practice endlessly, signing up for every tournament that becomes available for them, and they put in so much effort towards this to try and take it. And you can see that all that practice put in is finally paying out for them.
Yeah, not only that, practicing online, but actually here at the event, they're the team that's always backstage practicing, getting to war games, practicing as much as possible, making sure they stay sharp so they can perform as best they can here on the stage.
Yeah, and they've been doing a great job thus far. Cloud9 has been having a couple of little stumbles here, but I really feel like these teams like Cloud9 really could be putting up a lot more pressure here, and they really have it in them to actually come back in this series. They will have their map pick up again next. I'm curious what map you guys think they're going to go to. They've now lost on Tolvaron. Where do you think the RMD goes from here?
They cannot go to Ruins of Lordaeron. They cannot go to Dalaran Arena, so process of elimination leaves Blade's Edge and Tiger's Peak. So I would kind of expect Tiger's Peak.
I think they'll end up going to Tiger's Peak. I think that makes the most sense, kind of like Tolvaron has pillars that they can kite to. So, yeah. Although that game, I think Cubsy fell a little bit behind, got kind of caught off guard, not keeping himself up as much as he should. But those offensive clones you go for are a little bit risky. They've been paying off for him throughout the entire tournament. So sometimes that does happen where you fall a little bit behind, and the enemy team can capitalize on that. I think SK Gaming did a great job.
Yeah, I agree. And while we get this next game queued up, we do have a real quick interview with the team captains that we can go ahead and show you guys.
My handle is Swapsy, I'm playing Shaman for SK Gaming. My role as a team captain is to keep my team on the goal, make sure they know why we play every single day for so many weeks, a month in a row now, that they don't forget what's gonna wait at the end of the road. We want to win BlizzCon, so I always remind them that's what we're going for, and that's why we have to put so much work into this. We're also a group of friends having a lot of fun. We're able to adapt on the spot to whatever gameplay. That's why we're so good. Like, it really sucked to lose BlizzCon in 2013, because I think that was a year where we had it for sure and we threw it away, so this is the time, this is the moment to win it this year. So our trainings regime was so strict that I think we deserve and we will win BlizzCon.
I'm Jack Nihill, or in-game people know me as Roasties, and I play Sub-Rogue. I'm the team captain. I've been playing WoW probably since I was around like 5th or 6th grade, but I got into PvP like late Kata, early MoP. If you're playing like a really like setup-based comp like RMD, like if I was the team captain for the team, I'd be like calling like when you have deep freeze, like when I have stun, like can we go at the same time, and like if we can like follow everything up. I mean, that's generally what everyone on my team does though during every game.
As a team, I think that we're pretty well balanced. We all make a lot of calls. Roasties is our team captain, and he mostly just handles like the paperwork, and he signed us up for the tournament. We all know what's good to do, but sometimes not everyone sees the same things, so I think it's almost not so much as trust, is that we all understand the comp enough and understand like what's good to do, that if someone mentioned something we weren't thinking of, like we generally like instantly know if we should be doing that.
Roasties is my guardian, so he always makes sure that like my well-being is good, and he makes sure I have all my stuff with me. So yeah, he's like a parent, kind of.
All right, Wealthy Man, actually the youngest player in this tournament. I believe he's only 15 years old, which, doing some basic math, I believe means he was 4 years old when World of Warcraft was released.
Wow, that's good math.
Thank you. It's very difficult math.
Yeah, one of the things too about Cloud9 is this is the first time playing at BlizzCon. SK Gaming, kind of BlizzCon veterans. Botar, I believe, was saying, or Swapsy, I should say, was saying they kind of got robbed at 2013. At least that's how he feels. So they've been putting in a lot of time, a lot of effort to make sure that this is their year, that they can win.
Yeah, and we do actually have some interesting little facts for you guys that we can go ahead and show you about SK Gaming here. Obviously, it's their preferred comps. They've been playing that Enhancement Shaman, the Warrior, and the Druid, also known as Turbo Cleave. But they do also have that Feral Warlock Shaman comp available to them because they do have Fabs on their roster that they can swap in if they want to. We haven't actually seen him play. I don't know if we've actually even seen him play at the EU regionals. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if he played played or not. He did not. Okay, so we may end up seeing him here at some point. But in this matchup, I kind of feel like the Turbo Cleave that they're going with is working out much better for them.
Yeah, I think it certainly is after the recent, well, not recent anymore. A few months ago, Warlocks were nerfed, so most of the players aren't really utilizing them. They're more specifically used to counteract the Holy Paladin teams. But now moving into the semis and the grand finals, unless Healing Stat decides to switch over to Shatter, I don't think anything's really going to result from that. But now looking over at Cloud9, obviously we can see that their preferred composition is going to be Rogue Mage Druid. They have Rogue Mage Paladin listed as well, but I highly doubt that we're going to see that come out from them here in their potentially final game here at BlizzCon.
Yeah, we haven't seen that coming out from them all tournament. Cubsy, of course, known as one of the best druids from North America, doing an excellent job representing the North American region. I know a lot of the European players are actually particularly impressed with him.
Yeah, personally, I'm kind of hoping to see that Elemental Shaman coming out of Wealthy Manager at some point, just because I want to see you eat a hat. I think that would be amazing.
It's not happening. It's not going to happen. There's no way his last game he's going to bring out his Elemental. It's not going to happen.
Well, let's find out, because we do have the draft available. So let's go ahead and find out what these teams have chosen as we move on here. Of course, it is going to be Tiger's Peak, as we predicted, and unfortunately, no Elemental Shaman. It's going to be that RMD once again from Cloud9. Rosty's sticking to the Combat Rogue. I feel like they can definitely make that work. It's just a matter of finding the right opportunity to really sink all that damage into Swapsy.
Like Sid was saying, they were one setup away from winning the last game. If they can just clean it up just a little bit more, they can pull through the defensive cooldowns coming out from SK Gaming. One of the things that Botar was saying is he thinks the big advantage of his team is they do such an excellent job rotating their defensive cooldown, so we're going to be looking for that this game. And if they can do it again, Cloud9's going to have to play almost perfectly to break through it.
I mean, SK Gaming have to climb up a waterfall at this point, though, because the maps after this, even if they win this, is going to be Runes of Lordaeron, it's going to be Dalaran, and those are so heavily favored for the Turbo Cleave in this specific matchup. So Cloud9 are really against the wall. They have to pull off a miracle, really, if they want to take down SK Gaming at this point.
Yeah, but I feel like if there is an RMD that can pull off this miracle, then it's probably Cloud9. These guys are really, really, really good. Even in the series we saw them playing earlier, they were playing just absolutely flawlessly, having a little bit of a hiccup here, which is kind of surprising. But as we are about to move into this third game in this series, we will find out if SK Gaming is going to take this 3-0 or if Cloud9 is going to start to mount their comeback here, as we are 5 seconds away from these gates opening up.
Yeah, if you guys believe in miracles, show Cloud9 some love here today. Their tournament life is on the line. North America's last hope to push through and make it to the finals for this BlizzCon championship. Both teams once again going to be very, very patient. We're going to look to see Joe Fernandez once again try to use that Blade Storm to stop some of the incoming CC, using that heroic leap, almost getting Roasties out. That was a very close call.
Yeah, Joe Fernandez holding onto that Blade Storm for a little bit longer. He wants to try and immune the cheap shot. He does not get it off, however. Pre-Iron Bark out from Botar here with the Nature's Vigil, trying to get as much extra healing as possible. Roasty's getting caught into a bash. The Fairy Storm up now as well from Botar. Wealthy Man, the target of choice at the moment, is he is down to 50% HP. Offensive Cloak of Shadows out from Roasties here. Charge over onto Cubsy. Ascendance gets popped. SK Gaming are looking to take a quick game 3. Execute should connect. He displaces down at 7% HP and barely survives the SK Gaming onslaught, but he had to use everything as the expense. percent.
I believe he actually Shadow Melded that execute, so that's what kept him up right there.
Oh.
The clutch Shadow Meld Displacer Beast coming out from Cubsy, keeping him alive. Swapsy taking a little bit of damage, having to use that Shamanistic Rage, also using his Trinket. He still has his Ancestral Guidance. Cubsy's in a lot of trouble. Swapsy can connect him with that Ancestral Guidance.
Looks like Cloud9 actually might be starting to focus on Joe Fernandez as their targeted choice. They actually put Swapsy into a Polymorph a second ago, now into that Cyclone, so they may be looking to put some damage into Joe Fernandez, maybe make him feel a little bit less comfortable jumping in like that. But now Wealthy down to 50% health. Joe Fernandez and Swapsy just training him as hard as they possibly can. Now swapping over onto Roasties. They're just pinging back and forth, never letting Cubsy really get an opportunity to get those blanket heal over time effects out. And now Cubsy's Heart of the Wild has worn off, and they're swapping over onto him. Joe Fernandez coming in with the charge and the Stormbolt. Is Cubsy going to be able to survive through this? Down to 50% health. He's going to Displacer Beast out of there. Unfortunately for SK Gaming, they did not quite have the burst that they had last time.
Yeah, unfortunately, Botar had to use his bash onto Roasties. I actually thought they were going to go after Roasties in that position. Unfortunately, they're not able to capitalize on that. Joe Fernandez chasing after Cubsy, Swapsy chasing after Wealthy Man. Charge now over onto Wealthy Man. He blinks away immediately. Gap closing that. Well done. There's the Vigilance preemptively used onto Swapsy here as we see the triple crowd control setup. Cloud9 need to be able to burst through this. It looks like Roasties is going to trade out advantage. Double Eviscerate now onto Swapsy. They're cutting right through that Vigilance just like butter. Swapsy down to 30, down to 31%. Barely hanging on. Gift of the Naru, Ancestral Guidance trying to get a little bit of extra healing here. The crowd control chain is going to fade onto Botar. The killing spree out from Roasties isn't going to accomplish too much here. Cubsy getting swapped to. He has the Bark Skin available. He's not using it. He needs to try and react to the damage here. Uses that dash, trying to kite away. He will hold onto those Bark Skins. Well done from Roasties to peel. They're actually making a swap over onto Joe Fernandez. The Iron Bar comes out from Botar. Well done, and SK Gaming are going to deny Cloud9 once again.
Yeah, Cloud9 actually doing a great job just trying to cycle through these cooldowns and just staying alive at this point, just through the sheer amount of damage coming out from SK Gaming. There's now the Deep Freeze onto Botar. Are they going to be able to set anything up here onto Swapsy? They got the he's got the Shamanistic Rage available. The blind comes out onto Botar. He's going to trinket that. He actually waited a little while before trinketing that. Now caught into the full Polymorph. Surely Swapsy's going to have to end up using the Shamanistic Rage, and there it is. Shaman Rage is going to be active now, and there's no major defensive cooldowns available for Botar for quite some time now. So Cloud9 actually has an opportunity here if they can get another good setup in the next 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, Cubsy getting swapped to, having to use his Barskin once again. Wealthy Man taking a lot of damage, and I like what SK Gaming is doing. They're punishing Cubsy for pushing into those offensive clones, making him a little bit scared, and he's not being as aggressive as we typically see. Roasty's actually getting caught into a Stormbolt, deciding to immediately trinket that, getting caught into a full fear out of that. Botar has that Iron Bar coming up in 5 seconds. It wasn't able to get it off. We can get a full sheep onto Botar. Doesn't look like there is going to be follow-up CC swaps. He's going to be completely fine at the moment. His Shamanistic Rage is going to be coming up in 20 seconds, so a lot of defensive cooldowns here for SK Gaming. Rosie's actually caught into a full bash, got the Cloak of Shadows up, the Colossus Smash coming up from Joe Fernandez, as well as the Recklessness. The Wealthy Man actually spamming out those Polymorphs, gets one reflected, so well done by Joe Fernandez.
Yes, Roasty still just getting trained down at the moment by Joe, and Swapsy trying to pull back here. That last setup could have ended the game, but Swapsy using his Trinket and preventing that from happening. Now Shaman Rage is available. Cubsy actually getting swapped over to here. Ascendance gets popped. Barskin comes out once again. He displaces, trying to get to safety as he is down to half HP. They're looking for another setup. Full kidney shot onto Swapsy. The Smoke Bomb gets dropped. The Shaman Rage is going to answer that immediately. Joe Fernandez getting cloned up there at the end of the Blade Storm. Well done from Cubsy. Chaining the CC together. They need to be able to punch through this Shaman Rage, but they don't follow up the sheep. They were able to win shirt, I believe, onto Wealthy Man, and that means that Botar is going to freely heal his team back up.
Cubsy actually got the offensive clone onto Swapsy, so he actually has no hots. He's still in a lot of trouble. If they can get any CC onto Botar. Botar positioning himself very well, though, far away from Cubsy. Cubsy not going to be able to get that follow-up CC. Rosy's taking a little bit of damage. Cubsy caught into that full Stormbolt from Joe Fernandez. Wealthy Man just wants to stop the damage, spamming all this Polymorphs, and now they want to go aggressive. Botar actually caught into a full sheep. Swapsy in a lot of trouble. The Vigilance up on him. Cloud9 looking to draw back and strike back against SK Gaming. Swapsy down to 20% HP. Botar having Trinket come up so soon. 2 seconds if he can get the Trinket off, get the Iron Bar up. Rallying Cry comes out. The NS, the Iron Bar comes out on the Swapsy. Botar keeps him up at the expense of everything.
Yes, that was every cooldown used just there for Botar. So Swapsy in a lot of trouble. He's going to have his Shamanistic Rage available once again in just a couple seconds here, but they're swapping it around onto Cubsy again. The Barkin is active. He's going bare form. He's just trying to get out of there. And one thing we've been just constantly seeing SK Gaming doing, and this is what's making it so difficult for Cloud9, is they're paying so close attention to the buffs on both Roasty and Cubsy. As soon as that feint falls off, as soon as those hots fall off, that's when they make the swap. Now the Stormbolt coming out onto Cubsy. They're going to try and put some damage into Roasty's. Roasty's immediately getting that feint back up. He wants to limit that damage as much as possible. They do manage to pull the Shamanistic Rage out of Swapsy, though.
Yeah, and they're rotating through the cooldowns efficiently here. SK Gaming only trinket available for Swapsy for the next setup. Unfortunately, though, Cubsy getting cloned up there. I'm not sure if it was reflected. Roasty's forced to use an evasion here, and Roasty has no more trinket available. Kidney shot onto Swapsy. Unfortunately, it was DR'd. Bash over onto Joe. Will Cubsy chain the clone? It looks like he's looking for a change the clone onto Joe, but there was no cross crowd control onto Botar, and Cloud9 are kind of falling apart right now.
They are up against the wall at this point, and they're actually having to just sort of pull back and maybe wait for some defensive cooldowns to come up. Whatever it is, they wanted to get back out of there. Roasties did manage to get a re-stealth, though, and he's going to move in here. Swapsy gets the Iron Bark, and they're going to go ahead and open up onto him anyway. Roasty's coming in there. He does have his killing spree, or no, excuse me, he does not have his killing spree available for another 20 seconds. So it's going to be a while before they can get another really good burst off. So they're just, at this point, I think they just need to hang back and stay alive because Cubsy is running out of mana fast.
Just Swapsy hitting Swap 2 once again, using that Shamanistic Rage. He still has his trinket if he needs it. Botar has no trinket available, using that dash, actually putting a full bash onto Cubsy. Cubsy actually getting swapped to. Well done by Botar, getting out that bash onto Cubsy. Cubsy using his Bark Skin in response. He still has his trinket, he still has Iron Bark, so we're still working with some defensive cooldowns. Both Druids getting so low on mana, down to around 10% on both, but Cubsy going for the drink. Has to stand up from that right away, but that Mage Food once again ticking instantly, getting him some mana. Roasty's getting that Iron Bark, the DR stun going out onto Cubsy. Roasty's going to be completely fine. Swap's taking a little bit of damage, but Joe Fernandez is going to shut that down with the Vigilance.
Yeah, well done. And what is available? Recklessness comes out from Joe. He is getting polymorph on it, though. Well done from Wealthy Man, shutting down Joe's damage at the moment. A clone now onto Swapsy. Ascendance is still available. No trinket for Roasties for 25 more seconds. SK Gaming need to try and make something happen quick with that cooldown window available. Cloud9 are actually starting to reset and starting to stabilize at the moment here. Pressure onto Wealthy Man, down to half HP, but he has both blocks available. Adrenaline Rush now out from Roasties, but they are still trying to look to punish him. Where's the double stun combo? Botar pre-arm barks. He lands the capacitor stun. Stormbolt swap over onto Cubsy. Ascendance gets popped. He does not have Bark Skin for 2 more seconds. Dipping dangerously low, he displaces back to the balcony. Ascendance is still pumping through. Down at 23%. If Joe can reconnect, they might be able to end this. Bark Skin gets used. They don't care. Down at 30%. Joe chart stuns over. Down at 27%. Almost into execute range of feet onto both. Roasty's trinkets out. Colossus smashes up. And Iron Bark, it needs to be enough. He trinkets out of the Stormbolt. Cubsy is still somehow alive. Down at 35% HP. And Cloud9 are looking to rotate it. The kidney shot on the Swapsy. They drop the swap button. He's not responding. He had shot it. His shot range is way too late. And he can easily go down. Rallying Cloud comes out. Desperation. They're trying to finish him through. And Swapsy as well. He's going to pull off a miracle. He's still alive.
His rallying cry is going to fade, though. Could be dangerous for him, but it looks like he is going to stabilize. Cubsy completely tapped on mana, down to 2%, dampening, of course, at that 20% mark. Wealthy Man taking a lot of damage, down to 30% HP. Swapsy getting swapped to once again, though. Botar has that Nature's Vigil up. His hops are going to be empowered, throwing out a ton of healing onto Swapsy. That Iron Bark as well. Wealthy Man forced into that Ice Block. Roasty's using that Closed Shadow. They need to let Cubsy drink. He needs to get away, but the pressure coming from SK.
He's in execute range. He shadow steps back to Cubsy and barely stays alive. Cloud9 need to figure out something quick.
This is why we say that Cloud9 is such an amazing RMD. There is no reason that they should still be in this game right now. There is no conceivable reason how Cloud9 is still alive, but somehow they're holding on, and Cubsy's getting a drink. He's getting a huge drink, up to 20% mana once again, gets the Iron Bark out onto Wealthy. Wealthy also has another Ice Block available still. They're turning it around into Swapsy. There's the Deep Freeze onto Botar. Can they just finish Swapsy right here, right now? The Shamanistic Rage comes up. Botar trinkets the blind right away. Swapsy is still alive. They're turning it around onto Wealthy. Cubsy caught into that Stormbolt. Wealthy couldn't slow down. Oh my God.
He barely survives, and now Cubsy under fire. He has Bark Skin available. He needs to respond. Caught into that bash. Joe's looking to end this. Cheap shot out from Roasties. Roasties peeling for his team perfectly at the moment. They're looking to try and end this. Botar has no trinket. Deep Freeze is coming up in 3 seconds. Cloud9 need to figure out how to get the crowd control. Clone over into Joe. Botar pre-Iron Barks the Deep Freeze. Wealthy Man needs to follow it up, but he doesn't have the follow-up. Vigilance comes out from Joe, and I think SK Gaming are looking to end this. Swapsy's still in a bit of pressure. Cubsy under pressure as well. Killing spree coming out from Roasties. Is this Cloud9's comeback? Swapsy's down at 27% HP, and he's gonna fall. Cubsy at the same time. He's down at 30%. He blinks away. Joe gets polyed up, and I think Cloud9 have just had a comeback.
I cannot believe what I've just seen. I don't know. That was amazing play coming out from both teams. SK Gaming, like you said, maybe perhaps overextending and able to capitalize.
Man, that game, Cloud9 just insisting beyond all odds, no, we will win this game. We will
they're
win
still
this
playing.
game.
Okay, never mind. Nothing's happening. I was looking at the wrong frame. Joe Fernandez is a beast, but I don't think he's going to be able to finish this off by himself. Obviously, SK Gaming want to play this out to the full value.
Oh, of course.
And that is going to be it. Cloud9 are going to have a comeback here now, taking a game off of SK Gaming.
Wow.
We got a series.
Yeah, when I think World of Warcraft, the BlizzCon Championship, these are the type of games we're talking about. Two of the best teams from around playing against each other, and that was incredible.
That was absolutely ridiculous. Again, there was no conceivable reason how Cloud9 should have been able to stay alive that long other than just sheer raw skill. There's no other explanation for that. There were so many situations where they should have died, but just in that split second, they make the perfect decision of like shadow stepping away, recognizing that Cubsy's in a safe spot next to a pillar, shadow stepping over to him, getting out of line of sight. There's so many just perfect little maneuvers that Cloud9 made there. That was a good game. That was a good game.
Unfortunately, now they have to face off against SK Gaming on Ruins of Lordaeron, which is their map selection. So Cloud9, they need to keep the positive mindset because these are going to be the hardest games that they are ever going to play, probably historically in their arena lives.
So what makes SK Gaming have such an advantage on something like Ruins of Lordaeron or Dalaran Sewers?
Typically, at least from what I've studied and watched from a couple of the streams, is the tomb itself, they just never get off of it. They can constantly rotate it around on it, and whenever Cloud9 want to go for a drink, they're forced to run into the room. What do they do when they stack up in the room? Well, they stack up, and that means that SK Gaming can kind of just cleave them all apart as 3 targets. And as the RMD, you're looking to split up and isolate the turbo cleave. So Runes of Lordaeron just counteracts that based on a map level.
Yeah, so the bigger maps, the RMD is looking to run away and try to overextend the turbo, like you were saying. So the smaller maps, of course, their advantage. That makes sense.
Yeah, it also gives the RMD a little bit more option to, on the larger maps, a little more option to reset, get the re-stealth, go back in and try to get a new opener, which is so important for the rogue to be able to get those saps off and everything. So I fully expect that we will see a smaller map. Like you're saying, they're not going to pick Blade's Edge. No. And the only other 2 maps that are available are Ruins of Lordaeron and Dalaran Sewers. So of course we're going to see a smaller map if we rule Blade's Edge out of the equation.
If Cloud9 wins this next game, it's literally a miracle. Like, they are the best players in World of Warcraft if they can beat SK Gaming on Ruins of Lordaeron. I don't think there's an RMD in the game right now that has done that. So it would be a first achievement, really, if they can beat them on Ruins of Lordaeron. So Cloud9, they definitely need your energy. That was just an awesome game. I can't believe the level of play coming out from both sides, and I still can't believe that Cloud9 was able to pull that off.
That was the game. That's the type of games that we expect from Cloud9. You know, these guys coming here, the BlizzCon stage, a lot of fans in the audience. Of course, Wealthy Man's family here as well. So they have a lot of support. They've been playing amazing, and like we said, they're North America's last chance to make it into the BlizzCon finals.
Yeah, and of course we do have SK Gaming that we've been talking about Cloud9 a lot, but it's also important to point out that SK Gaming is playing these absolutely
they're incredible,
brilliantly. However, I did just get word that we do have Jackson available for the replay down on the main stage, so we'll send it down to Jackson for the Windows 10 game DVR replay.
Thanks so much, guys. Are you kidding me with these games right now? Give it up for SK Cloud9! That was absolutely incredible. Cloud9 with their backs against the wall, fighting with Cubsy. Let's look at the replay. Cubsy was dry They were running out of cooldowns, but they never stopped fighting. They did make the swap over to combat once again. So we're seeing Roasties in this game doing a little bit better job trying to peel for Cubsy. That being said, right off the bat, they almost globaled Cubsy again, but Cubsy shadow melted the execute. That is unreal. So once again, they're swapping constantly back and forth. SK is, you know, every time they get somebody at about half health, they're making that Stormbolt swap over to Cubsy. But Cloud9 never giving up hope. Look at them, they're all about half health, just about. Cubsy's running out of mana. They swap to him once again, but at that exact moment, Roasties and Wealthy Sock know when to go aggressive. They know when they have to peel. These guys have synergy unlike any other team in this tournament, and you gotta be rooting for them to keep their BlizzCon dreams alive. I cannot wait to get into this next game. So let's do this, throw it back to the casters, and give it up for them once again. Let's go!
Yeah, absolutely. These games are absolutely intense. These teams are so evenly matched. But I think it's fair to say that we can already call a winner of this series, which is everyone watching. These games are so ridiculously good.
Yeah, they certainly are. And speaking more specifically about what Cloud9 is trying to accomplish, there's 3 steps to their composition. There's initiation, so Roasty's primarily in charge of that. He's stun locking all 3 members. Then after that, they need to follow it up with the second step, which is crowd control, polymorphing 1 target, cycloning another, and then after that, they need to follow it up with burst. Looking on the other side, though, for SK Gaming, they're looking to counteract the initiation. They're looking to stop the CC. They're looking to extend the game and make a lot of swaps and get Cubsy's mana bar to 0 and kind of just PvE their way through the matchup, rotating defensive cooldowns and playing as efficiently as possible.
And we do actually have a real quick video while we get this next match all set up. We have a real quick video to show you guys a little bit more information about both of these teams.
I guess I'm kind of the newbie when it comes to LAN tournaments, but we came to E-Regionals and won that, and I felt really confident with my teammates as they are the veterans of World of Warcraft.
we play other games together as well as World of Warcraft, and when we play other games, we also talk about the other players of WoW, or the times we've been playing, what we think of the players, and share these opinions.
Even outside the game, or when we prepare for BlizzCon, we're also a group of friends having a lot of fun. We enjoy sitting on Skype with each other and just chat casually. That's another aspect why we fit so well together.
Okay, I actually don't want to say that.
No?
But it's true. Okay, I'll say it.
Yeah.
So, to get a clear mind before a game, it's always a good idea to work out. Yeah. Also, make sure you're not hungry.
Can you say that again?
No. That's too weird. If we win BlizzCon, we'll still be like streaming.
Anything fun celebration-wise?
Maybe. I don't know yet.
Always good idea to not be hungry when you're about to play some World of Warcraft. I find that when I'm hungry, all I can think about is food. It's more important to be thinking about playing the game.
You don't eat too much, though. You could go into like a food coma. So very important to find that proper balance.
I also thought it was very interesting at the start of that, Joe Fernandez saying how he was, he felt like kind of a newbie coming into this whole thing. He doesn't really have a whole ton of LAN experience, but watching him play here, I mean, I am the biggest Joe Fernandez fanboy at this point. Like, he has just been playing absolutely flawlessly.
You know what's interesting is when this team, SK Gaming, originated, they had Fobs as their main third player. Joe Fernandez was just a fourth wheel at that point in time. They're saying, you know, Joe, we kind of need a warrior. We want to be able to play Turbo as well. You want to come along with us? And now look at that. Look at him now playing in the semifinals, one win away from making it to the BlizzCon finals and potentially taking the championship.
Yeah, the only thing I knew about Joe Fernandez before actually going to the European regionals was that he had 3 warriors in the top 10 on the European ladder. I was like, what is going on with this warrior? What is he running? Always trying to investigate and see what other regions and what other teams are doing, and it just really impressed me.
Yeah, okay, we do have the draft available. We can take a look at what map you'll be playing on here, as well as if there are any composition swaps. It looks like we are going to Ruins of Lordaeron, and the same comps yet again. It's going to be the Arms Warrior, Enhancement Shaman, and Restoration Druid for SK Gaming, playing that Turbo Cleave. And for Cloud9, we're having the RMD of Roasties on the Road, Wealthy Man on the Mage, and of course Cubsy on the Restoration Druid.
Yep, still sticking to that combat specialization. Doesn't feel too confident with the subtlety. Like I was saying, subtlety's damage is very predictable, whereas combat is much more random, and you can kind of get kills within those cooldown windows as well, so you can just punch through Ironbark, and then certain times you'll have your setup available because Killing Spree rotates off cooldown a little bit faster. It's not guaranteed to be a set value, and it allows them to kind of get a little bit of an edge, and Cloud9 was able to pull off a win in that last game, but it was a very nail-biting one at that. I mean, Cubsy almost died in the first 20 seconds.
Yeah.
You think about that first initial one and how much stuff happened after it.
Yeah, one interesting thing about subtlety, obviously he's playing combat, but one interesting thing that's worth noting about subtlety is that we've seen, especially from players like Peekaboo, they'll actually use their Shadow Dance defensively because it gives you the opportunity to use it at a key moment to get quick cheap shots. It's apparently very difficult to say out on every member of the opposing team, so you can say, whoa, this is bad, let's just stun everybody for a second. But sticking with that combat, that just really means that Roasties, he wants to be on the offensive, he wants to be scoring those kills and taking this team down. And I think that strategy makes a lot of sense too, because there's so many cooldowns that they need to cycle through.
Yeah, there is, and SK Gaming does such an excellent job rotating through those defensive cooldowns. Sort of talking about subtlety again, if you have to use your cheap shot defensively, or if you use your Shadow Dance defensively, unfortunately it puts you in a very defensive position. You're not able to go offensive because that's really the only key he has. So that's why I like the combat selection. I like that talent choice, and I think it's working out for them.
Yeah, we've got a few fun facts to point out here for Cloud9 as well. And it's important with this team as well. They were considered the underdogs initially. Most people didn't recognize their names or themselves as players, but look at them now, represented by Cloud9. They're on the BlizzCon stage. They're in the semifinals now, pulling off a victory against SK Gaming. They need to win 2 more in a row to make it to the grand finals. Can they do it?
Yeah, of course, but taking a look at SK Gaming as well, Joe Fernandez and Healing Stat, they're both good friends, and they very well may end up facing off against each other in the grand finals if SK Gaming can take out a win here.
Oh, Roasty's actually used his Vanish in the waiting room.
That's interesting.
And his poison is starting to fall off. Could be an interesting little thing that might prove to be a factor in the game. We'll have to wait and see. Cloud9 are currently against the wall, though, against SK Gaming. Now it is the map choice for SK Gaming as well. Can Cloud9 pull off a miracle? That is the question.
Yeah, like Sid was saying, this is a very hard map for Cloud9. They're not going to have the opportunity to run away, get the drinks that Cubsy needs. And if Joe Fernandez and Swapsy can play as well as they were in the last game, as well as Botar, it's going to be very difficult for Cloud9. They're going to have to play just as well as they did in the previous game.
Yep, of course, now there's the sap coming out, actually onto Joe Fernandez this time. Get the cheap shot onto him as well. Like, no Blade Storm going to be available for that. He's going to get caught in that Cyclone completely. Rossi's taking a good chunk of damage just from Swapsy, though, and that's going to be a little bit of extra healing that Cubsy's having to put out here right at the start. However, Swapsy did already get that Iron Bark, and now Botar caught into that blind. Swapsy into a very short polymorph there. Looks like they're actually going after Joe Fernandez at the moment, as he's going to have to use his Die by the Sword.
Yeah, I like that, though. He uses Die by the Sword, just preventing that incoming damage and making sure that Botar doesn't have to use defensive cooldowns onto him. He wants to have them available for Swapsy. Botar actually having his Nature's Vigil up right now, powering us off. It is going to fade, but right now SK Gaming is looking good.
The only thing now is that Cloud9 are forced to lock in on Joe Fernandez. Swapsy has too many defensive cooldowns. They could maybe make something happen onto Botar. They've got to consider their options here. Joe Fernandez into the kidney shot. I would expect him to be the target. Looks like they're actually spreading their damage a bit onto Swapsy. Double Ice Nova comes out. Garrote Silence over onto Botar. Swapsy does have Shaman Rage available, holding onto it here. He does get topped off by Botar, and SK Gaming are looking very good in this position. Ascendance gets popped over onto Cubsy. He's dipping dangerously low, down to 52% HP. Recklessness, Blade Storm coming out now as well, but Cubsy will escape with the Displacer Beast. Heart of the Wild now up, increasing his healing quite significantly. A bash over onto Rossi's, answered by Cubsy's Iron Bark. Well done from Cloud9 to survive the Ascendance Recklessness out from SK Gaming.
Yeah, that was very smart from Cubsy there, holding onto his Displacer Beast, because he knew that Recklessness Blade Storm was going to come out from Joe Fernandez, immediately getting out there and throwing the Iron Bark over onto Rossi's. Rossi's, though, still taking a lot of damage, actually has to use his evasion to be able to limit all of that damage coming in onto him, and now they're just swapping it over onto Wealthy. He dipped actually pretty low there. He may end up having an Ice Block, and yeah, there it is. That's going to be the first Ice Block coming out of Wealthy Man.
Rossi's actually having his Killing Spree available. Botar has no Bark Skin, no Trinket. If they can capitalize on that with that Killing Spree, we're going to be looking to see Joe Fernandez making sure he gets that Vigilance off. Botar line of sighting. He knows he's in trouble.
Yeah,
he has the Vigil. He has all the hots on him. He knows he's the target of choice, so he's just trying to make it really hard for Cloud9 to connect.
And Cloud9 are going to mix it up. Deep Freeze onto Botar, Kidney Shot onto Swapsy. He trinkets that. Vigilance comes out, and that's a bit of an overlap here from SK Gaming. Let's see if Cloud9 can punish that a little bit later down on the road. Polymorphs onto Joe Fernandez as they're trying to apply pressure onto Cubsy. He has Bark Skin available, trying to hold on to it. Stampeding Roar. Cubsy doing a good job to kite away from SK Gaming at the moment. Wealthy Man peeling for him now as well with those polymorphs over onto Joe. Charge Stun connects over onto Roasty. He's dipping dangerously low. A full fear over onto Cubsy with no trinket for one more second. Roasty's forced to use the Vanish defensively here. Garrote Silence now over onto Swapsy. Botar pre-Iron Barks the blind. Kidney Shot to follow it up. Die by the Sword comes out preemptively from Joe Fernandez now as well. They've baited the Shaman Rage. They've baited the Die by the Sword. Killing Spree is still available. Maybe Cloud9 can pull off the miracle.
Yeah, Swapsy actually overlapped his Shamanistic Rage with that Iron Bark, so maybe a little bit of miscommunication there from SK Gaming, and that could be the sort of thing that they can capitalize on.
And Botar actually used his Trinket there. At the same time, Cubsy offensively cloning Swapsy, so Botar using his Trinket, not able to get out that healing. Joe Fernandez taking a little bit of damage, but I think Swapsy is going to be the main target. Still no Shamanistic Rage for another 35 seconds. Cubsy taking a little bit of damage, having to use that Bark Skin. If he can get away, though, it's going to be very serious for Swapsy. This is the full gouge onto him. Botar loading him up with hots. Cubsy still not able to get away, sort of tanking this damage. Here it is, the full Kidney Shot onto Swapsy. Deep Freeze onto Botar. No CC going to be followed up. Joe Fernandez.
He gets the clone! Swapsy's down to 30% HP. They need to chain it into another clone. Here comes he doing really. Grab comes out, and Ness is going to connect. Unfortunately, not able to get the Cyclone. Well done. They're going to interrupt that. Rossi's now down at 30%. A bit of a close call for SK Gaming, but they will stabilize now with Shaman Rage coming up in about 2 more seconds. Swapsy up, putting some pressure here onto Wealthy Man. Cubsy answers that with the Iron Bark right away. We see the Adrenaline Rush out from Roasties. Roasties is still out for blood. The next Deep Freeze could end the game. There's the Deep Freeze. He pre-Iron Barks it. Will it be enough, though? Shaman Rage now used as well to answer the incoming damage. A bit of overlap from SK Gaming, but the burst is still going through it. Swapsy now stabilizing out of the stun. Pressure onto Wealthy Man as he dips down to 50%. One more block remaining. He has a block. He needs to use it. Gets it off at 14%. Narrowly dodging an execute out from Joe.
Wealthy Man's blocks, they're going to give me a heart attack, man. He keeps using them at the last possible second. Cubsy does get caught into a fear there for just a second, but there's not going to be any follow-up CC. Wealthy actually managing to get out his Water Elemental again there, so that's going to be good news for Cloud9 as they now are going into another setup. Botar into that Deep Freeze. Swapsy, the target of choice once again. There's no defensive cooldowns available for him at all. Botar, unfortunately, though, for Cloud9, Botar is going to just hang out over here by the tomb. He's going to get a bunch of heals out there.
Dipping dangerously low. Down at 38%, trying to kite away again with the Stampeding Roar. The Bark Skin was forced there. He's got no trinket. He's not got no skin. His entire team is at 30%. Is Cubsy a god? He needs to be able to stabilize his team here for the next setup. No Shaman Rage for 5 more seconds. Can they pull the trigger in time is the question. Blind over onto Joe Fernandez, and they ended up breaking it. The blind is going to get wasted, and at this stage of the game, you can't afford that mistake.
Yeah, that is the forced normal on the Cubsy. This could be the game. SK Gaming trying to win this game. Roasty's down to 7% HP. He's going to go down. SK Gaming going to take this series 3-1, advancing to the grand finals.
Yeah, Wealthy and Cubsy still trying to see what they can do, and you can't blame them. There's a lot on the line here, but unfortunately for them, and fortunately for SK Gaming, that's going to be a 3-1 victory for SK Gaming. And congratulations to SK Gaming. They're going to be our second semi-finalist going up against SkillCap in the grand finals tomorrow.
Two European teams in the grand finals. I'm sure they're very happy about that. I'm happy about that. We've got some amazing teams from all over the world, and I'm really excited for the games tomorrow as well.
It's going to be an exciting day tomorrow where we finish it off and deem our champions for 2015.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about the NA versus EU rivalry, and the EU teams are just having such a strong showing here.
Look at them right now
BlizzCon.
celebrating together. They know that they're one step away, one more series away from claiming what they've worked so hard to achieve.
And these are the guys that they came out first in the European regionals against SkillCap. So they've got to feel pretty good going into the grand finals tomorrow.
That being said, SkillCap had taken them in a series. The matchup, they did lose the first matchup against Solar Gaming, or SK Gaming, I should say, 3-2, and came back winning 2-3.
Yeah. Basically, tomorrow's grand finals are going to be amazing, and you should absolutely not miss them under any circumstances.
It's going to be an awesome day tomorrow. I'm really excited. Obviously, these teams have been preparing for each other since they faced off against each other in the European Championship, and it's curious to see how their hard work is going to pay forward in the grand finals tomorrow.
Yeah, like we've said at the beginning of this event, winning BlizzCon is like beating the game for a PvPer. This is where you put all your time and effort and hard work at getting good at this game. If you're really passionate about PvP, this is what you go for.
Yeah, and of course we have to congratulate Cloud9 as well. They had an amazing run through this tournament. We were saying earlier that a lot of people thought them to be the underdogs at the start of this whole thing, and they really proved otherwise. Even in that last series, just the matches that they had there. So Cubsy, Roasties, and Wealthy Man, these guys, they're pretty good at this game. They've done incredibly well, yeah.
Another thing to mention is they were the only team that had 3 players on it, and they made it all the way to the semifinals, which is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, nothing to take away from, or nothing to take against SK Gaming at all, though. I've been playing incredibly well. In fact, we do have Jackson down and available for that Windows 10 game DVR replay.
Thanks, guys. What a great way to end today's arena matches. Once again, huge congratulations to SK Gaming, even though Cloud9 gave us some absolutely amazing games. Let's go ahead and take a look at this replay. So on the smaller map, it was really hard for Cloud9 to escape the constant cleave pressure that SK Gaming was known for. Once again, SK Gaming delivered those insane Resto Druid swaps, which really kept Cloud9 on their back foot. And once again, Roasties gets just a little bit caught out, and there's not a whole lot of CC on Cubsy here. They're just really forcing the pressure. They're doing all this AoE damage, and once again, Roasties tries to, he tries to shadow step out of there with the great cutting we've seen him do before. Doesn't quite get it. But, Cubsy did have some pretty awesome shadow melts in that game, so you got to give them shout-outs. It's a really well-played game by both teams, but, SK does take the win. So I think we are going to have an interview with team captain right after this, but we're going to go ahead and throw it back to the casters, and then we'll get to the interview.
And I'm definitely looking forward to that interview. I want to know what was going through their minds as they were working their way through the series, especially after Cloud9 took that game off of them. Like their sort of response to it at that point. I just want to know what they were thinking going into that matchup. Obviously, you feel like it's a fairly confident position for them to be in, but there's so much on the line here that you never really know.
That's one of the things that's impressed me most about SK Gaming is their defensive cooldown management. We've been talking about it a lot throughout this entire tournament. You said that they are the unstoppable, or they're the
immovable object.
Yeah, they're the immovable object. And despite a few times in that series, they managed to rotate their cooldown so well that I wasn't very scared with them.
Not that I don't trust my UI, but I think towards the end of that game, the mid-range we saw early on, Vanish was used in the waiting room, and I actually believe that Roasty's poisons fell off towards the end of the game, which is pretty critical.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, and that's the sort of thing that can happen. We've talked before about how a lot of the North American teams, including Cloud9, have not had a ton of tournament experience in a LAN event, and that's the sort of thing that when you're up here and the pressure is mounting, it just slips your mind. You don't even think, oh, I need to refresh poisons or anything like that. So if that is the case, then that's unfortunate. But still, very well-deserved victory to SK Gaming by no stretch of the imagination. They've been playing absolutely brilliantly, and they very much deserved that win.
Yeah, and now to hear from our winners, we do have an interview with Jackson on the main stage.
All right, thank you. Oh, here we are. Hello?
We got it? There we go. All right. So we are here with SK Gaming Team Captain Joe Fernandez, fresh off of that amazing series victory. How does it feel? You're going into the BlizzCon finals. You gotta be pumped.
Yeah, it feels fantastic. We've been heading for this, and we really wanted to get to the finals, so we're super pumped for it.
Awesome. So you guys obviously closed out the series strong. On the smaller map, you guys, never gave him a chance to get away, but you did drop one match. What exactly happened in that one as opposed to the other matches?
At the end, it was actually my fault. I got too greedy thinking we could kill the druid, and then that made us lack defensive awareness, and they got the kill from that.
Well, that may have happened in that one game, but I think your defensive awareness was right on point just about every other time, especially your usage of Rallying Cry. It seemed like at every moment where the crowd was cheering, they're all getting hype, and then all of a sudden the Rallying Cry comes to save your team. Is that something that you communicate with your teammates, or is that like an instinctual move?
I would say 90% of the time we communicate that. Bota usually calls it and makes incredible calls, so that's why it was used that well.
Awesome, because it seemed it was like right at the end, right in the nick of time, but hey, the next match for you, BlizzCon Grand Finals. You're going up against Skillcapped EU, which is a rematch that you were successful in at the EU Regional. So how are you feeling moving into that match?
It should be fine. It will be a close game again, but we should be able to take it again.
Awesome. Well, you guys played great today. It was a lot of fun to watch. We're going to throw it back to the casters for a few brief words from them, but we'll be back to say our goodbyes after that.
All right, thanks so much, Jackson. And yeah, it's actually a really good point that Joe Fernandez made, talking about Botar and his target calling, or his cooldown calling. Botar is known to be one of the best multi-classers in the World of Warcraft arena just in general. He knows almost every class like the back of his hand. So having him on your team to be able to say, okay, Ironbark, okay, Rallying Cry, okay, Vigilance, okay, Shamanistic Rage, and just calling that out the entire time, that makes such a difference in making sure that you're not overlapping those cooldowns. We did see a couple of overlaps, but for the most part, their cooldown usage was spot on through that entire series.
Yeah, not only that, one of my favorite interviews from Joe Fernandez, he said something that they bring to the tournament is that they do so much damage that they can just randomly land a kill. So a lot of the time, it's very strategic when you use your cooldowns. The rogue's going to use Shadow Dance, so I'm going to use Ironbark, stuff like that. But he said throughout the game, they're just looking to put out as much damage as possible so their opponents make mistakes.
I think all the teams played extraordinarily well today. I was really impressed with Follow Esports. Earlier in the day, they were almost able to take down Cloud9. Unfortunately, they fell a little bit short. But thank you to all the players. Thank you guys for all of you guys tuning in as well. It's been an awesome day of tournament games, and I'm sure that the grand finals are going to be just the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Do not miss those grand finals. They're going to be tomorrow here at the same stage at BlizzCon itself, and of course at the same stream if you're watching from home. That's going to be an absolutely epic series. I am so much looking forward to it. And of course we do have some Heroes of the Storm coming up in a little bit as well, so that's also definitely worth checking out. I can hear a few cheers coming for Heroes of the Storm from the crowd, so definitely some people excited to see some of that as well. But man, we've had some good World of Warcraft here today.
Yeah, if I wasn't here casting these games, I would be at home waiting for tomorrow to see these finals and to see which team finally wins. So definitely excited. Have some good games for tomorrow. Like we said, tune in, guys.
Yep, we will see you guys tomorrow. We're going to take it back down to Jackson at the stage. We'll see you guys then.
All right, thanks, guys. What an incredible day of World of Warcraft Arena World Championship matches. Huge congratulations to our two teams moving on to the finals, SK Gaming and Skillcapped EU. And of course, a huge thanks to the audience, both everybody here live today. I really appreciate that. You guys kept the hype going. Great job. Give yourselves a round of applause. You earned it. And of course, also a huge thank you to our international audience watching from all across the world. The World of Warcraft community is a global community. It's an amazing community, and we wouldn't be able to do this right here without you guys. Thank you very much. And of course, we will see you guys tomorrow to determine our 2015 World of Warcraft BlizzCon champions. But until then, thanks for watching, and good night.